All right. So first and foremost, I want to welcome all of the beautiful souls that are here today. And I'm so grateful that you've been able to come and listen, whether you're watching the video or you are here with us live. I appreciate your time and effort and really, really appreciate your trust in my abilities to teach you and the information that we share with you, and just really giving me your trust. I know that's a lot. So I appreciate you being here. My name is Christy Berry. I am a doctor of education, a wellness coach, a licensed counselor, and above all, I'm a passionate champion for holistic health and wellness. Today's conversation will be about more than just numbers and diseases. It's about empowerment and awareness and taking your power back when it comes to your health and truly reaching health freedom. Today we're going to explore not just the cost of neglecting your well-being or your health, but the incredible value of investing in it physically, emotionally, and financially. But first, let's begin by taking a moment and just ground ourselves so that we can be fully present in this training. We're going to start by just sitting in a comfortable space. Make sure you're comfortable. Take a deep breath through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. You may want to move your shoulders a little bit or your back. Wherever you're feeling stress in your body, just notice that. And we'll breathe again. Deep breath in. Exhale and let any of that tension just melt away. And we'll do one more time. This is a space for learning and empowerment. And I want to again thank you for being here. And we're going to jump into some educational stuff here for a moment. So today we're talking about the high cost of neglecting your health and why it's important to invest in your wellness and why investing in your health saves lives and it saves money. So let's stop for a minute. What if I told you that neglecting your health would cost you over $320,000? How does that feel? $320,000. And what if I told you that doesn't count the cost if you have a chronic illness or need inpatient care long term? Doesn't count that. Yeah, not so great. Today, we're going to explore the real costs, financial, but also emotional and physical, of not making health a priority and what we can do to change that. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a little bit smaller so that you can see the slides well. And you can see in our picture, we've got the dark side and the light side. We've got the dark side where we're paying those high costs, medicines, money, sitting in a waiting room, at the doctor's office or at the hospital. And on the bright side, we're investing in our health and we're taking some supplements and we're exercising and we're eating healthy. So what's the big picture? Let me tell you a story. And we're going to change her name. This is one of my clients, but I'm going to change her name so that she can remain anonymous. Her name is Lisa. And she's in her early 40s and she's raising 2 kids and working full time. And she's like the rest of us, juggling all of life's demands, right? And she is ignoring signs of stress and fatigue She actually was so busy, she didn't have time to go to her regular doctor appointment. She was grabbing fast food because she was on the go all the time, getting the kids to this activity and getting to work and getting home. And, it's like it's easier to stop and pick up McDonald's on the way home and feed everybody rather than actually making a meal, because when did she have time, right? Well, after a few years, she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. This is not an uncommon story. Some of you may know people like this. Some of them may be you. What started off as bad habits? What were those habits? Ignoring signs of stress and fatigue, canceling our doctor appointments, grabbing fast food, eating quickly. Bad habits, daily little habits. Okay? Medications, doctor visits. We begin having to take these things, medication, having to go to the doctor more often now because we have health issues. We're missing days at work. As she progressed, and now she's even on those medication things, and and we're still doing some of those things, those habits, she began to lose energy. Her energy was declining. Her finances were suffering because she's having to pay all these extra for medicine, for doctor appointments. She's missing days of work because she doesn't feel good. Her relationships are being strained. The family is suffering now. Maybe her relationship with her husband. And this isn't just like the hospital visits or the medication costs. This is also about the poor health that's stealing her time and draining her energy and putting pressure on her family and emptying her wallet, and the anxiety that she's feeling from the health issues and the emotional cost of well-being. Let's take it one step further. What if she's a single parent and she relies on that livelihood to raise her children, to keep her house? These are real things. And they aren't just, hey, let's pay the insurance bill, or let's pay for the treatments, or let's pay. This is a much greater cost. So beyond what we pay to the healthcare system, to the, holistic health practitioner, to whoever we're paying, the pharmacy, let's look at what our poor health is actually costing us in our daily lives and our productivity. And let's look at our direct health costs. Okay, so we'll start there. All right, direct health costs. Chronic disease increases of our likelihood of diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune, cancer, dementia. We can see that in our slide. Healthcare utilization. We're going to the doctor more often. We're visiting the hospital. Unfortunately, we have to see specialists now, and they cost more money, and they don't take the same amount of insurance, and the co-pays are more. And maybe we have to have extended treatments. If we start getting into those major health risks like autoimmune or cancer or kidney failure, we're doing weekly treatments. So it becomes very big. Expensive treatments, the cost of medications, therapies, surgeries if necessary. What about the cost of long-term care? Let's talk about that for just a second. Right today, I can tell you the cost today. Long-term specialized care for a person who's unhealthy, who is in a long-term facility, is running about $7,000 a month. Yeah, $7,000 a month. And this is in Alabama, where it's not as expensive as it is in other parts of the country today. $7,000. Oh, but wait a minute. I've got Medicaid and Medicare. It'll cover that. Oh, what have I just lost? I can no longer own any real property or any valuable property, because when I sign up for Medicaid, I waive my right to all of my value property, whether that's housing, whether that's cars, whether that's jewelry, whether that's furnishings, I waive my right. The state now can come in because I've signed it over. In order to get Medicaid, I've signed it over to the state. Now what have I lost? My children's inheritance. This is huge. And people aren't even aware that this is a thing. All right. So who can afford that $7,000 a month, right? And preventative care. We have a lot of missed opportunities that we could be taking advantage of for early intervention to avoid these chronic illnesses or the need for this horrible long-term care that isn't even healthy for us, because the longevity of a person in long-term care is about 1 year. So if you go into long-term care, there are people who are there longer. There are people who are there less. The average lifespan of a person once they've entered long-term care is 1.5 years or a year. I think it's a year now. It used to be 1.5 years 30 years ago when I was teaching this. It's a year now. Wow. Dr. Berry, I had no clue. Yeah, you'll find out more too. I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to talk about Robert. Of course, that's not his name. He's 55. He was not going to the doctor for regular checkups, so he had no clue that anything was going on in his body. He didn't think much about his blood sugar, and he just ignored it, and he ignored it, and he ignored it. And pretty soon he ended up in body failure, a lot of failure. All of his organs were failing. What happened was he ended up with diabetes, and he started having failure of all of his body, all of his organs. And he ended up in long-term care. And at the age of, at the age of 68, I believe, he passed away in long-term care. This is actually a family member of mine who is living in another state and had to actually go into long-term care. They had to pay for the long-term care. He lost everything that he owned because they ended up having to put him on Medicaid to be able to afford the long-term care. And in a year, he passed away. All because he didn't take care of himself, and he ignored the things that he needed to take care of, like his blood sugar and how he was eating, which could have all been avoided if he would have just been careful about some of the simple daily habits of eating healthy foods, staying away from fast foods, and, paying attention to our body. He ignored a lot of the signs and ended up in long-term care. This was not just health, ignoring those signs. This was not just on him and the things that he lost and his children now lost and his grandchildren now lost because they no longer have a grandparent. He neglected those basic health maintenance things, and he suffered the financial burden, but he also suffered a lot more, and his family suffered, and his brother who was helping take care of him. Everyone suffered. It didn't just stick to him. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So what do we pay? This is what we're going to talk about. What do we pay beyond that healthcare system? What is poor health truly costing us? You need to go away. So, indirect costs, and we've already kind of covered some of these. It's a ripple effect. How one person's illness can affect an entire family, an entire workplace, an entire community. So imagine that single mother that's diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. She's struggling to keep her job. Her teenage daughter picks up extra responsibilities at home, so now she's having to do more because mom doesn't have the energy to do the stuff. Her elderly parents are having to step in to help with the transportation needs and the meals. The entire family is feeling strained. The community may even lose a worker if she has to quit, and the family is bearing the financial weight and the emotional stress that becomes part of their everyday life, to the point that she is stressing out, feeling sad for her family, really having anxiety from that, which in turn worsens her condition. Ripple effect. Poor health reaches far beyond the cost of what goes in our pocket. So looking at our slide here, things that we've already talked about: lost productivity, missing work, reduced income. A lot of people come to me and they've already had to quit their jobs, and they're already, trying to apply for disability because they've been sick for so long. I want to get to you before you get sick so that I can keep you from getting sick. Reduced quality of life. You don't get to be able to do the things. You can't play with the grandkids. You can't help your family members. You can't do the fun things you want to do, travel or go places or do things. There's the burden on the rest of the family that are having to step in and help. The caregiving. They're facing also not just the financial stress, but the emotional stress as well, which then in turn puts more anxiety on the part of the person who they're trying to help, because that person doesn't want to have to be helped. They want to be able to do things on their own, but they just can't do it. And finally, not taking care of yourself up front. And I'm talking to you when you're 20, okay? Not taking care of yourself up front will lead to reduced lifespan. It's going to lead to that. Your life expectancy, your societal contribution has now been reduced. All because you've ignored your health in these younger years, or even in the mid years. So let's get specific. Let's explore how chronic diseases are contributing to this burden on both an individual and a national scale. So I've got a couple of slides here. So largely preventable diseases that our lifestyle changes can actually help. Heart disease and stroke. There are 944,800 plus deaths every year from heart disease and stroke, as well as lost productivity that they can't even put a price on. They believe that this is going to cost $2 trillion a year by 2050, right? Insane. Cancer, 1.7 million people are diagnosed each year. 600,000 people or more die every year from cancer. $240 billion is projected to be spent each year by 2030. Mega. Diabetes, one of those very simple to fix, right? 38 million people are diagnosed every year with diabetes. 98 million people are diagnosed every year with pre-diabetes. It's just a diet change. It's a simple one. $413 billion was spent in 2022 for care for people with diabetes. And it's not just, hey, my diet and I'm getting too much sugar. I mean, let's look at this. People lose their feet. People lose their legs. They're in wheelchairs. It's a thing. It's a big thing. Obesity. Now, I can speak of this one because that's where I'm at right now. I'm working on my weight. It affects 42% of all adults. If you're not eating healthy, that makes that even worse as far as the type of disease that is created by being overweight. So there's $173 billion per year in healthcare costs for people that are not taking care of their health and they're overweight. In my situation, I'm overweight, but my health is good because I'm doing all the other things. I'm just not getting enough exercise right now, but that's coming and it's happening now. All right, so while these numbers are really staggering, trillions, billions, millions, okay, lots of numbers here, they reflect the potential, not the inevitable. What does that mean? That means that most of these diseases are tied to a behavior and not fate or genetics. These are just a few of the heavy hitters. I want to look at a couple of other conditions that contribute to the rising cost of poor health. Let's see. Make sure we get that in the middle. There we go. All right. So things that impact our disease or impact our diseases and impact our health. 53.2 million adults are diagnosed each year with arthritis. They spend $300 billion. They spent $300 billion in 2013 on diabetes treatments. Help. Lots. Alzheimer's disease affects 7 million Americans at the moment. This was into, I think, 2023. 141% increase in deaths since 2000. They expect that by 2050, they're going to be spending, nationally, we will be spending $1 trillion a year on dementia. Epilepsy. 3 million adults and 500,000 children have epilepsy. And in 2019, the cost for caring for these people with epilepsy was $13.4 billion. Now, I'm going to talk about something that no one thinks about. Let's talk about tooth decay. And I have this on here for a reason. 1 in 6 children and 1 in 4 adults have bad teeth. $46 billion is lost in productivity annually. So even this minor issue can lead to significant costs and lost opportunities. Let's look at how those opportunities are lost. That lost productivity. A child misses school because their teeth are hurting. A parent is missing work for an emergency dental care for themselves or their children. Or a professional that feels embarrassed and distracted during meetings because of an untreated dental issue. Another thing is the gums. Our gums will get an infection. We get diseased gums. And some of you have gone to the dentist and your dentist has said, hey, your gums are diseased. Did you know that diseased gums or inflamed gums actually have been linked directly to heart disease? So now, what came first, the chicken or the egg, whether the heart disease causes the gum disease or the gum disease causes the heart disease, they haven't really gotten to that point, but they do believe that it goes from the gums to the heart. This is huge. This is a huge connection. So a simple thing of neglecting our teeth, neglecting our diet, neglecting our I don't feel good, can go and lead to some really serious issues. I do want to mention one other thing that we really haven't talked about too much today, and I don't want to get into a big amount of it, but women, when you don't feel good and you go to the doctor and say, I don't feel good, and all of your tests come back fine, you have started the beginning of an autoimmune concern. It's not a disease yet, and it will not be a disease if you know what to do to get healthy. But if you don't know, eventually it will become disease. It will become an autoimmune disease. Now, for men, that takes a year. For women, because we have a mechanism that says don't keep antibodies for very long because it could be a baby and we don't want to kill the baby, it keeps sloughing off the antibodies, and it does this for years. Actually, we will have an autoimmune effect for up to 15 years before we can actually be diagnosed. Ladies, when the doctor says nothing is wrong, don't let them put you on a mental health medicine. Reach out to me, because this is a definite issue that can be fixed before it becomes a disease. So let's do that. That's all I'm going to say about that. So now that we've covered the diseases, let's explore what's driving them, or risk factors. So risk factors, and of course, ignoring our problems is like our biggest risk factor, or people not hearing us or taking us seriously is another risk factor that I've just mentioned. But let's be clear. Genetics, which is what everybody says, well, my mom had that and her mom had that. It's not a genetic sentence to get a disease. Because your mother had cancer does not mean you will get it. Now, the medical community wants to make that connection. And yes, if you are living the same way your mom lived, you will, whatever it is. But if you are doing what you can early on to negate the effects of that genetic sequence, you can. Yeah, genetics are important, but epigenetics are also important. So epigenetics is the science of how our environment and our behavior influence our gene expression. So you may inherit a predisposition for one thing or another, but our daily choices will determine whether or not those genes become active or are activated. Our daily choices flip that switch to tell us whether we're going to get that whatever predisposition we could get. I saw that thumbs up. In other words, your lifestyle can turn health on, or it can turn your health off. You have much more power than you think over your genetic disposition. So looking at these risk factors just quickly, cigarette smoking, 16 million Americans, 240 billion in annual healthcare costs. Physical inactivity, leads to major chronic conditions, $117 billion in annual healthcare costs. Excessive alcohol use, 178,000 deaths every year. $249 billion in economic losses in 2010, and that was 15 years ago. So there are some major risk factors, but it has to do with choices that we can make ourselves. And to be fair, these are lifestyle related and not genetic destiny, right? This is not your destiny. Well, let's bring all of this home with what this means for you personally. So personal costs. Personal costs. Average cost of health care per person in 2023 was $14,570. Lifetime cost without a chronic illness is $320,000. That was our number we started with, right? Wait a minute. What could you do with an extra $320,000? Buy a home? Pay for a college fund? Travel? If you end up with a chronic illness, your costs can be over $700,000. What is your health worth? Well, I think it's worth more than that. The good news is this isn't inevitable. There are choices that we can make right now to turn the tide. Invest in health today. Investing in your health today prevents a lot of major costs in the future. Small changes in your habits can equal big savings in money and time and quality of life. Really important. I think quality of life is probably more important than my money. What about you? And when we prioritize wellness, we are investing, and that investment will bring great returns. You don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight. This isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. Choosing one small habit, one baby step. Drink more water. Ooh, drink more water. Take a walk every day. Set your bedtime so that you can create a sleeping schedule. Schedule that overdue checkup that you maybe should have checked in with. These little steps are just seeds of transformation. They change the trajectory of the possibility of getting a disease in the future. The goal, though, is to show up for yourself every day. If this is disease up here and I stay where I'm at, I'm going to hit that disease. If I make one tiny change down here, watch this. There's the disease. If I make one tiny change, do you see where that trajectory is going? One tiny change can change the trajectory. Two tiny changes can change the trajectory. One change right here, just tiny movements, can change the trajectory of your future health. All right. I want to share. I'm going to take myself off screen for a minute and share screen. If I can get this thing to do what I want it to do. Been playing with, let's see, allow multiple, yes. Been playing with technology all morning. All right. So I'm taking everything away for a minute and I'm going to share top takeaways from the high cost of neglecting your health. This is a little paper. We're going to hand it out later. Neglecting your health is expensive. Chronic illness is preventable. The cost isn't just yours. It is everyone in your family. You have more power than you think to make changes in your genetics. Small changes create big shifts. And finally, your health is an investment and not an expense. And I think that's probably the most important take home today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll go to the final slide. If I can get it to go, it doesn't want to go. There it goes. All right. So what questions do you have about investing in your future health? And I thank you so much for being here. We will stop the recording. But I did want to just reiterate, you have the power. And I want to invite you to continue this conversation, whether it's in the worksheets, whether it's in group, on our Facebook page or other pages. Let's just continue this conversation. And we'll continue here in our class, and we'll see you on the other side.